Hey everyone, Andrew here, and today we will be doing another Fighting the Hate. At the end of this month, they're going to be releasing a brand new Karate Kids film, Karate Kid Legends, where they have the trainer from the reboot Karate Kid, Jackie Chan, team up with Ralph Macchio's Daniel from the original Karate Kid to teach the next generation of kids. I'm really excited for that. I really wanted to do something in honor of this series because it's a great series that has made a dramatic comeback in recent years with this and the Cobra Kai show. I considered doing a Fighting the Hate on the next Karate Kid, the often maligned and hated spin-off series where Mr. Miyagi goes and trains a girl played by Hilary Swank to do karate, while it's also focusing on like her befriending a falcon, and she's getting bullied by this militia group at the school. While I personally love that film, and I do think it's a film that deserves a lot more respect than it gets, there was another film that I really kind of want to talk about, a film that is considered a knockoff Karate Kids film. Because there's a lot of Karate Kid knockoffs that came out in the years afterwards, between like No Retreat, No Surrender, and The Magic Kid, and Never Back Down, and all these things. And for me, this is easily not only the best of the knockoff films, I would say I like this film more than all of the Karate Kid films. And I'm not 100% sure why. Because don't get me wrong, I love most of the Karate Kids films, but there is something about this film that just speaks to me a lot. So today I will be discussing the 1992 film Sidekicks.
You want a real shot at me? Well, there's your chance. Karate tournament?
Why don't you and I go win this thing, huh?
Jonathan Brandis and Chuck Norris.
I can't believe that was you.
Sidekicks, rated PG.
It is directed by Aaron Norris, and it stars Jonathan Brandis and Chuck Norris, who is the brother of Aaron Norris, the director. So it's interesting that he decided to direct a film that's all about a kid who is obsessed with his brother. The plot of Sidekicks is that we follow this young kid named Barry Gabruski, who is very troubled and bullied, and has asthma, and so he's not able to be very physical and do a lot of things. But he has this rich, vivid imagination where he imagines himself going on these adventures and hanging out with Chuck Norris, and they go off on adventures, and he is Chuck Norris's sidekick. And in each of these dream sequences, you go into like different Chuck Norris films, be it Missing in Action or Delta Force or The Hitman. And of course, Barry has these daydreams in public, and people hear him and make fun of him and bully him because he's a weirdo that has daydreams as a teenager. On the one hand, a teenager-esque kid having these daydreams about fighting alongside Chuck Norris feels a little odd. In general, it's like that he's at that age where it's like that maybe shouldn't necessarily be a thing that you're doing anymore. Another thing is, like, if you grew up in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, like, and you were a kid that was into action films, yeah, you were imagining yourself in these action films fighting alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Jean-Claude and even Chuck Norris. It can be kind of odd that he picked Chuck Norris of all the people to be, obsessed with. He chose Chuck Norris, but you have to remember, like, even before the modern day interpretation of Chuck Norris, where you have all these Chuck Norris facts that make him sound even more cool and badass, he was always kind of a little cool and a little badass because he had this air of authenticity to him. He was a legitimate karate champion. He was a guy that literally could do the things that everyone else pretended to do. A guy who literally faced Bruce Lee and was considered among his equals. I can see, looking at Chuck Norris and having that kind of connection, being like, that's the real deal, that's the person I want to be like. So it does make sense to an extent. It is a little weird that Barry is like in his teenage years, but we'll talk about that more when we get to the end. So yeah, Barry has been having daydreams all the time, and will have them in the middle of class, and one of his teachers, named Noreen Chan, played by Julie Nickson-Soul, basically he's like, Barry, you've been zoning out of my class again, I need to talk to your father. So she ends up having a discussion with Barry's dad, played by Beau Bridges, and we find out that Barry's mother just died a couple years ago, and his dad has been working all the time, and his kid is like being left alone. It's like he's not physical kid. He can't do the things that other kids do, so he creates these worlds and these things where he gets to be, powerful and strong and able to do the things that he's not able to do in reality. Mrs. Chan's like, that is perfectly fine and understandable, but he's doing it in classes. We can't have that. We have to find an outlet for him, some way to use that creativity for something positive and something that works for him. So they decide that since Barry is interested in Chuck Norris and wants to learn martial arts and wants to learn karate, that they'll take him to a karate dojo and have him, start training. And he is taken to the Stone Dojo, which is run by this sensei known as Kelly Stone, played by Joe Piscopo. And he happens to be this very arrogant, very opinionated jackass. And he's like, oh no, I'm not teaching your kid. Your kid's a weakling like you are. And like, I'm not, he wouldn't stand a chance in my class. So Barry and his dad end up leaving, which turns out to be a good thing because Barry's main bully, this kid named Randy Cellini, played by Jonathan Buckner, goes to that class and he's like, if you gotten through, I'd be bullying you twice as much as normal because I'd have had more time. But they're still trying to figure out what to do to how to help Barry out. So Mrs. Chen decides that she's going to introduce Barry to her uncle, Mr. Lee, played by Makeup. And Mr. Lee is this odd, mysterious, kind of a trickster, kind of a con artist kind of guy who owns this local Chinese restaurant called the Frying Dragon. Now, literally the first thing we see of Mr. Lee, he's in line at the airport, and there's this older Chinese guy in front of him smoking a big cigar, and the guy behind Mr. Lee is like, hey, Charlie, can you tell him to put that thing out? This is a public place. And Mr. Lee is like, my name's not Charlie, but okay. So he talks to the old guy, gets him to give him the cigar, and he's like, shows him, and makes the cigar disappear, and the guy's like, okay, where is it? Why am I smoking? And he's literally got the cigar like in his pants and he's like on fire. So the first thing we see Mr. Lee do is set a guy on fire for being slightly rude to him. Okay. Mr. Lee invites Barry and his dad over to his restaurant. They have this big meal and he's like, okay, I'll start training you. He takes Barry in the back and is like making food and is making these dumplings and he's like throwing them at Barry and Barry's supposed to like catch them. But because Barry keeps zoning out and daydreaming, he keeps getting smacked in the head by them. Mr. Lee is like, you need to learn to focus. You need to learn to tune everything else and focus on what's in front of you.
The dumpling never attacks because he does not survive to attack. Because he is never ready.
And the restaurant ends up getting attacked by this group of bikers. And Mr. Lee's like, all right, I'll take care of it. And he douses himself with alcohol, so he smells drunk and comes out like swaying like he's completely drunk with this big tray of plates and just starts kicking everyone and breaking plates overhead and knocking everyone out and manages to take out all the bikers by himself fairly easily.
These gentlemen only saw what I appeared to be. Lesson number 2.
And he's like, okay, I'll start your training, Barry. So, how far away do you live from the school? Oh, it's like about a 10-minute drive. No. How far? It's about 2 miles. Okay, starting tomorrow, you will walk. Barry decides that he's going to do that. Starts walking to school, ends up running into this girl named Lauren, who is a big crush on, and she is played by Danica McKellar. Most will remember her as Winnie Cooper from the Wonder Years. She's like, Barry, sure you don't want to ride with us? And he's like, no, I'm fine, and walks to school. He's in gym class where it's like everyone else is, doing physical activities, this and the other, and he's on the bleachers because he has a note from the doctor that like he can't do it because he has asthma. He's daydreaming and gets hit in the head by a ball. The gym teacher sees this and he's like, are you sleeping in my class again? All right, you now have to complete some physical activity. You're going to climb the rope. And Barry's like, I can't climb the rope, I'm asthmatic. It's like, you're climbing the rope. So Barry starts trying to climb up the rope and is having a really hard time with it, but then he imagines Chuck Norris is beside him. He's like, hey, Barry, you can do this. Wrap the rope around your leg, place your other foot on top, and now you have all the weights in your legs, and you just have to pull. And he just starts pulling himself and manages to make it all the way to the top. That is such a cool thing to have happen to this kind of unathletic kid, and that technique actually does really work. I've never gotten it to work for myself because I have tried, but I've never figured it out fully. But it is a technique that I have seen other people use and works really well. So it's a good thing to show your kids, if nothing else, to teach them how to climb the rope in gym class, if they still do that in gym classes anymore. I don't think they do, because I'm worried about kids hurting themselves when they fall. And ends up getting into an altercation with Randy, she doesn't like you, she pities you. She doesn't want anything to do with you. And he's like, no, you're not, that's not true. And he gets away, and Lauren comes over, and she's like, I hate how they're all so mean to you and how they pick on you. And it's like, it's not fair. And he's like, he's right, you don't like me, you pity me. And he runs off angry and runs all the way home and ends up having a giant asthma attack on the front porch, but throws away his inhaler, He's like, I don't need it. I don't need anyone. And ends up going to the hospital. And while at the hospital, they're like, we don't know why he had this asthma attack. Like, his scarring looks really good. Like, he should be fine. Like, he should be okay with this. Mr. Lee shows up and rubs this ointment onto Barry's chest. He's like, it'll help with the breathing. We tried to do too much a little too soon. So tomorrow we start your training for real. We take it slow. First we walk, then we run. And then begins the big montage of training Barry how to be a fighter, how to be a warrior. And it's not Karate Kid-esque in the whole you're doing something mundane and then we reveal that this is going to be used for karate later. It's a lot more of like running, doing pull-ups, doing different physical activities. He starts teaching him how to break, boards, and then eventually on how to break bricks, and gives him this pair of nunchucks that are steel, so every time that they hit him, they were going to zing him and make it hurt a little bit more. So he starts having to learn how to do that. Meanwhile, we haven't seen Mr. Lee do anything kung fu-esque or anything in the training-wise until like this one little quick scene where Barry's going down the tracks doing the movements, and Mr. Lee's beside him showing him what to do and how to do it. So there is a little bit of it, but it does have this thing of like, he's more teaching him how to breathe properly, how to gain endurance, how to be stronger, how to, focus his mind and focus his attention.
They look deadly.
It is true, they are weapons. But you must realize that the greatest weapon you ever possess is self-control.
And it manages to work very well to the point that Barry starts going to gym class regularly and doing the stuff with everyone else. The gym teacher didn't like this at first. He's like, I'm not having you die on my floor. It's like, you get back on the bleachers with the ladies. And Barry's like, I'll sign a waiver or whatever, but I'm doing the whole class. So he does the whole class and ends up getting into an altercation with Randy, Barry throws the first punch, and they end up having this full fisticuff fight. Gym teacher shows up and pulls them both apart, and it's like, Randy, what are you doing picking on the asthmatic kid? It's like, he threw the first punch, and it's like, Barry.
Not bad, kid. Not bad at all.
Lauren and him have a making up, and they decide to, can I hang out with you this weekend? I'm not pitying you, I just want to hang out with you. So they end up going to the zoo with Mr. Lee. Yeah, so Randy knows he can't just bully Barry like he used to. So he decides, like, okay, hey, you want to settle this? We'll settle this at the tournament. There's a big karate tournament going on. Your team versus my team, winner takes all. So Barry gets Mr. Lee and Miss Chen to be part of his team, and they go compete in this tournament that's broken up into 4 events. You have brick breaking, men's weapons, which is a performance using weaponry, female kata, which is movement and performance style of karate, as well as a freestyle fighting, which is your more traditional one-on-one fight. They get to the tournament and find out that they can't compete because they're only a team of 3 and they need to be a team of 4. When, lo and behold, who should happen to walk into the building but Chuck Norris, playing himself. He happens to be there to, as part of the settlement of the tournament and as, for charity and things of that nature. And Mr. Lee decides, oh, we got to get him to join. He's the boys' hero. He will help us. And Mrs. Chen is like, okay, I'll go ask him. And right before Mrs. Chen can talk to him, Norris runs into Kelly Stone, who's in charge of the Stone Dojo, and he's like, it's a good thing you're not competing, Norris. I'd kick your ass 2 ways a Sunday. And Norris is like, sure. And Mrs. Chen introduces herself, and tells them what's going on. And Chuck Norris goes and finds Barry, who's sitting in the audience, and he goes and sits next to him. Barry has this moment of like, are you real? And he's like, yeah, no, I heard you were competing and that you were short a person. You know, there's a certain person in this tournament that really needs a good lesson, so I think I'll help you out. So he ends up joining and they end up competing.
This is a little joke here. Oh, come on, Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris.
You got a problem with that, son?
No.
Join as they're named after the Chinese restaurant. They call themselves the Frying Dragons. And they end up competing in the different events. Barry competes in the men's weapons and manages to get first place using his nunchucks in his performance. They did a really interesting thing where it's like he's doing the beginning of it and the part of it, and then partway through he switches into his daydream, so he's in full-on ninja gear and doing all of the performance stuff. And it's a really good workaround when your actor isn't necessarily able to perform at a level that wants to be, that you just switch him out with a stunt double in the full costume. Like, it's also very obvious that you did that type of thing. But it works really well. Mr. Chen ends up losing the female kata, but does end up placing pretty well. Mr. Lee competes in the breaking competition and ends up winning despite showing up in his full-on chef's outfit because he was working at the restaurant before coming to the competition.
Hey, you're not wearing a karate gi.
Don't need karate gi for brick breaking.
And then Chuck Norris competes in the freestyle fighting where he ends up getting to the finals against Mr. Stone, who keeps trying to bulk up and enrage Chuck Norris to make a mistake, and he ends up getting mad, takes off his shirt and just like does this full-on press to make his body as muscular as possible, and then gets kicked in the face by Chuck Norris, who sends him flying. And then it basically ends up with the two teams ending up in a tie between the Stone Dojo and the Frying Dragon Dojo. So it is then decided that, okay, well, the Frying Dragons will choose who competes in the final fight, and the Stone Dojo will decide what the final competition is. So they decide that Barry's going to do it, and Barry's like, okay, I'll do it. And it's against Randy, and Randy chooses brick breaking because that's his specialty, and he managed to do very well in the thing, though he lost to Mr. Lee. So he goes and has it set up for 8 bricks and manages to break through all 8 bricks pretty easily. Barry goes and does it and manages to do it, but ends up hurting his wrist really bad. Randy goes out and asks for 1 more brick to break a record-breaking 9 bricks for the competition. Does the punch, but manages to break through 8 of the bricks, but does not get all the way through the 9th brick. So he ends up doing that. So Barry, he has to do is break through all 9 bricks to win. As he's walking in, Randy goes up to him and goes, hey, when you break your arm, I'm going to be over there making out with your girl. Which sets Barry off, and he starts pacing, is getting really mad, and Mr. Lee just pops in front of him and is like,
No anger. You are here to confront bricks. Not that stupid boy. Now, concentrate.
And he basically goes and sets the bricks on fire. This will help you focus. And Barry manages to break through all 9 bricks, thus winning the competition and winning the fight. Barry and Chuck Norris are sitting on the bench, and he thanks Chuck Norris for all of his help and helping him figure it out. And it's like, and Chuck Norris is like, no, Barry, you did most of that yourself, but I was happy to help. Barry gets up to go join his friends and his family. He turns around to look at Chuck, but Chuck has disappeared. On the bench where Chuck Norris was is the magazine that Barry has been carrying around for the entire film that has a picture of Chuck Norris. This little kid picks it up and goes, wow. And then basically cuts to him rolling away in his wheelchair as he takes the magazine with him. Roll credits. On the surface, this is definitely very much a Karate Kids knockoff. Like, even under the surface, it's very much a Karate Kids knockoff. It's like a lot of the same points. You have a teenager getting bullied by a guy over this girl that he's interested in. Him going to a dojo to learn how to fight better, it being the one that the kid that's bullying him goes to, and being run by a very evil person who insults him. Finding this older Asian gentleman who teaches him kung fu in a different, bizarre way. And then it all ending with a big tournament competition with the 2 main protagonists and antagonists facing off against each other. So yeah, it has a lot of the same beats, but I feel Like, this one just has so many good elements to it that it just stands alongside Karate Kid, if not maybe being a smidge better. Again, I have a hard time saying that while I believe that for myself. It's like, this is clearly the knockoff of it, but it has so many interesting elements to it, such good performances, interesting concept, great dream sequences, great choreography, good fighting. There are some little nitpicks you could do for the movie, like the fact that Barry somehow learns kung fu without necessarily being really shown doing much kung fu is one thing. I think one of the things that kind of holds this film back a little bit is the age of the main character. The fact that it's a high school kid who is daydreaming like this and is having these troubles, it does add a little bit of a harder to accept concept to it. And I say this as a guy that went to high school and was that kid. I was the guy that was in his own mind and in his own daydreams and thinking, and, everyone thought I was crazy because I would walk the bleachers of my high school, just mutter to myself because I was writing stories. That's how I wrote stories back then, is I didn't write them on paper, I thought of them and I said them out loud. So yeah, everyone thought I was insane. And I understood that. If he had been in middle school, it would have been a bit more acceptable. And a little bit, because, a kid that still daydreams and still thinks about being, an action star with an 11, 12-year-old makes sense. But when you're in your 14, 16, 17s, it's a little bit like, fits more with a younger kid than it does with a teenager. But that said, I really can't imagine this film starring anyone besides Jonathan Brandis. Like, he is absolutely exceptional in this film. Just such a great performer. Gone way too soon. Like, I'm so sad to live in a world where we don't get more anything from Jonathan Brandis. Because everything he ever was in, he gave 110%. Neverending Story 2 is as watchable as it is because of Jonathan Brandis. Because there's a lot of bad in that film. I love that film, and I might do a film defending that at some point, because of a lot of things, but mostly because Jonathan Brandis makes that film worth watchable. He is like the best of the kids from the It miniseries. He made Sequest DSV so much more fun and more interesting than if he'd not been in it. Like, everything he was in, he gave 110%. And this is in many ways his shining achievement. It is one of his best performances overall. But then you also have the stellar cast backing him up. You have Beau Bridges as his dad, who just gives this great performance of this dad that really wants to help but doesn't really know how to do it. Julia Nickson-Soul does really great performance in this. Mako as the wise Mr. Miyagi works in this super well. He's so charming and so interesting, but you also can see that he's a bit of a con artist, a bit of a smoke and mirrors kind of guy. Like, he just manipulates situations to make himself seem more powerful than maybe he is. It's really interesting because it's like a point where he's like, oh yeah, you have to drink this to make you feel better. And it's like, okay. And his niece is like,
magic potion. What's in this?
Don't worry, it won't kill him.
he's just giving him something just to see if he survives it type of thing. But he's so charming and so interesting. It's like, literally, he steals every scene he's in. He's so fun. You have such great villains in this. Like, Randy, played by John Buchanan, is such a hateable jerk. And you just like, yeah, like, why are you picking on this kid so much? And it's like, well, he looks like Jonathan Brandis. Like, you know, if he gets any self-confidence, he's stealing all the girls in the school. Richard Mole as the coach, who is just brilliant at yelling at people and insulting people. And then you have freaking Joe Piscopo as Sensei Stone, who is just chewing the scenery as hard as he can. he is having so much fun with this role, and he is bulked out. Like when he does the shirt off and muscles, like you legit, like I didn't even realize that this guy was an actual actor. I thought he was like a stunt guy that they got, but this is like a real like I did not connect that this is the same guy from like Saturday Night Live and Johnny Dangerously. Like he doesn't look like that guy to me, but he is. He looks strong, but he's also so goofy and so charming. I just love the ending of the film where like they lose and his response is just smack his student on the back of the head for failing. It's like, jeez, it's so stupid, but it's so funny. Like honestly, the villains of this film make this film amazing. And then you have Chuck Norris playing himself, playing all of his variations through all those streams. And this is legitimately, I think, probably one of his better performances. Like, he lives the role really well, and you can tell that he's having fun with the roles and being part of this. Like, it just works so well for this. One of my other, I would say what's negative is, like, it doesn't necessarily deal with the asthma thing super well, because it just kind of, like, he has it, but it doesn't affect him extremely much anymore. It is kind of interesting because it's like there's a point where he's just running around and he just like sets down his inhaler and just doesn't even notice that he doesn't need it anymore. But they do somewhat set that up. Like if you really watch it, it's like when he goes to the hospital, they do explain that most of his scarring and stuff is down, so he's actually doing a lot better. Plus, he is still asthmatic, so he is still having to use the inhaler on occasion. Like right before the big tournament, he's seen inhaling within the inhaler because he's having a hard time with it. So it's not like he is cured of his asthma, but it does kind of feel like he's cured from his asthma. Like I can imagine a kid with asthma watching this going, I don't need the inhaler, I'm just gonna be like him, and then nearly dying of an asthmatic attack, if not actually dying. With this way the school is set up in general, it's just so odd because it's like it's a high school, but they're going to middle school and elementary style gym class. I don't remember high schools having gym classes like that anymore. But then it's also like one of the classrooms looks like a freaking lecture hall from a university, so it's really odd. I would say like Karate Kid is a more real world set kind of story. Sidekicks feels like if Karate Kid was set in the Looney Tunes kind of universe. Like, it's so ridiculous and so over the top sometimes, but in the best way. Like, it's so fun and so charming and so interesting. A blast to watch from start to finish. Like, and it's a shame to me because this is a film that just gets pushed under the rug because it's a Karate Kid knockoff, and it's a late Karate Kid knockoff because it came out like 8 years after the first one. I mean, this has a 26% on Rotten Tomato and only like a 54% score from the fans. And I feel like this deserves way more love and respect than it gets, because even comparing it to like other knockoff Karate Kids, this is one of the better versions of that. Like, some of them are really iffy and not particularly great. Like, there's one I watched the No Retreat, No Surrender, where literally the kid got trained by the ghost of Bruce Lee. The only good thing about that film is that it has Jean-Claude Van Damme in his first role as the main villain, and he's freaking amazing in the film. Beat up these kids and would then go do the splits in the corner and be like, are you next? I'm done. I want something else. Like, that film is sometimes so bad that it's entertaining, whereas Sidekicks is just a really good, fun film. Like, I legitimately like this more than all of the Karate Kids. And even with all those positives that I can list, I still can't really say why I like this one more. Because I like the original Karate Kid, and I like the sequels. I like the next Karate Kid. I liked the reboot of the Karate Kid. I love Cobra Kai. Like, legitimately, I think the only thing Karate Kid that I don't particularly love was Karate Kid Part 2. And I don't even hate that one. I just don't particularly like it. I think it's just a little too much of the same as the first. Or I didn't like the new love triangle or something. It never worked for me as well. But I still like so much of the Karate Kid. I feel with the first Karate Kid, there's a part in the middle that just doesn't work quite as well as I want it to. Whereas I feel this one just is perfectly paced throughout the whole thing, where none, like, anytime it starts to feel dragged out or not working right, they cut to a dream sequence, and it just makes it more interesting and more fun. The only thing I could see anyone really being like, this part drags, is some of the dream sequences. There's one in particular that runs a little bit long, which is very much like going after the Chuck Norris, the hitman kind of thing, where they're going through with guns and blowing things up. But that's also one of the best parts of the movie. It's so goofy and so over the top and fun and ridiculous. It's kind of funny to me because, like, every time Barry daydreams for most of the film, the damsel in distress that they're rescuing is Mrs. Chen. And it's like, why are you rescuing Mrs. Chan? Do you have a crush on her? Or is it just because she's the one nice person to you? Or is it because you want to hook her up with Chuck Norris? Like, so it's nice when Barry starts to finally get control over himself and control where his vision, his daydreams are. He switches it out and it becomes Lauren that he rescues instead. So it's like, hey, it's my dream. I get to decide who I rescue. I love the fact that the karate competition was more than just, we're just going to have them fight. Our main two characters literally only fought once, physically. And the main competition was literally, they just faced off in a brick-breaking competition. They didn't even actually throw punches at each other at any time. So interesting, but it's also a great way of showing the different elements of Kung Fu and karate and all that stuff, because when you're a kid and you watch, like, Karate Kid, yeah, you think that's all it is. It's just, you're going to learn to fight. It doesn't matter if you go into karate or taekwondo or whatever, you're going to learn to fight. And then you go into some of these and you're like, oh, this is not that whatsoever. Like, I went to taekwondo as a kid, and that is way more like a dance than it is like a fight. Like, I'm glad I did it, because I was able to fight off bullies, and I kept and made sure people didn't mess with me type of thing. But it was definitely not a lot of, facing people off and having legitimate fights. It was literally, all right, block, and all that stuff. But it shows, like, the wider range, that there's more to this sport than just punching people and kicking things. I love that at the end of the day, it isn't about defeating Randy. It is about defeating yourself. It is about clearing your mind and focusing on the tasks in front of you and using that to push you forward. And it's such a charming, heartfelt film that this is not a cash grab. This is not a knockoff for the sake of being a knockoff. This is just a film that is trying to make a good Karate Kids-esque film. Because knockoff is not a bad thing. You can make a knockoff film and have it be worthy. Like, how many Die Hard knockoffs are there that are as good or, on par with Die Hard? Air Force One, Olympus Has Fallen, Speed. There are so many variations you can do with a concept. This is just a variation of the Karate Kid-esque style, and I think it's a worthy successor. I think it takes the ideas and adds a lot of heart and a lot of charm to it, while also keeping it a little goofy and a little fun. It still, to me, is a special place in my heart. Is still the film that if I feel like I want to watch a Karate Kids film, this is the first one I'm going to consider watching. This is still one of the best Karate Kid films ever made. But that is just my opinion. What do you all think? Do you like this film? Do you hate this film? Am I completely wrong? Would you like me to do some other the films that I talked about from this, like The Neverending Story Part 2 or The Next Karate Kid? Until I see you again, happy watching, happy reading. Bye.